right, this is section 12.3, transformations. Tonight's homework is chapter 12, page 718, numbers 13 through 18. As of now, looking at your May calendar, and it says that your Unit 12 exam is on the 7th and the 8th of May. So for now, that's what it is. Do not depend on a retake. We're running out of time, so don't be like, nah, I'll just, don't depend on one, okay? So you have plenty of time because this chapter only goes to 12.5. So if you think about it, you have an entire spring break to get ahead if you want. So I will have 0 to negative pity about these dates having the test because you have plenty of time to get ahead if you want, okay? Now the actual exam is 2 parts, multiple choice and free response. If you are gone on either one of these days, you will take both parts on the same day. So if you have an AP exam on either one of these days, no problem, take your AP exam, do what you have to do, and then when you come back, you'll take both parts. So if you're going to be gone on the 8th, you'll take both parts on the 7th. If you're going to be gone on the 7th, you're going to take both parts on the 8th. If you're not going to be gone on either one, then you get to take one and then the other. Anybody know for a fact they'll be gone on the 7th and 8th? Which one? Which one? The 7th? 7th. So it's just you two? So you guys will take both parts on the 8th. Is it a morning test or afternoon?
I have no idea. I think it's morning.
Okay, I'll double check. All right. Tonight's homework is going to be based on your quiz on Thursday. So I've already explained your first question. The first question on the quiz is going to be the one from the warm-up, and the second question on the quiz is going to be like tonight's homework. So if you want to take a look at tonight's homework, well actually what I want to do first is make sure you guys are okay on last night's homework because last night's homework is going to be the reason we do well on tonight's homework. So on number 2, on last night's homework, we basically drilled and killed the whole domain and range concept. Does anybody have any questions about domain and range? You guys feel good about it? You guys convinced me. Do you feel good about domain and range? Yes or no? Okay, if you weren't here yesterday, we just basically drilled and killed it. So I'm sure somebody in your group will give you the tricks on how to remember the domain and the range of an exponential function. So the asymptote is dependent on this number that's out here. So if the number out here is -2, then the asymptote is y equals -2. Victoria, are you able to tell me how we got these numbers on last night's homework? Did you do last night's homework? I can't hear you, Ben. All right, so how did we get from -1/4 to -1/4, -7/4? Actually, it's easier to look at these numbers. These fractions are a little bit too rough on the eyes here. How do I go from 1 to -1? Speak up, please. How much? Okay, I'm asking you a question, babe. How do I get from 1 to -1? Do I add or subtract or multiply, divide? Subtract how much? 2. How about from 4 to 2? You also subtract 2. How about from 1/4 to -7/4? What did you just subtract? You subtracted 2, right? So all of these you're subtracting 2. So the way you get the corresponding points is you subtract 2 from the y value. So this right here is your y value. And if there's a -2 out here, that means you moved up and down. Which one's up and down, X or Y?
Y.
Y. So since you moved up and down, you're going to only change the Y value. When would you change the X value? If you moved what? Left and right. Okay? So if you change outside the argument, do you go up and down or left and right? Up and down, right? So since you changed up and down, you only are going to change your up and down, which is your Y. That's why you subtract 2 for each one of these values. Questions on number 2? Okay, so let's take a look at number 3. Take a look at number 3. We multiplied everything by 3. See that 3 in there? That's a multiply. Okay? I wonder what happens if we put a 3 in the front. Let me know when it's ready. I need it over here, so how about plugging it over here? Sorry. Did my X values change or my Y values change? Did my Y values change? No, only my X values change. Okay? So when I change inside the argument, you guys should be writing this down in your homework. When you change inside the argument, the X value changes. So go to number 3 and make sure that you changed it so that only the X values change. Yeah, just plug it under here and plug it over here. I'm sorry. Yeah, sure. All right, how does it change? How did you get from 1 to 1/3? And from 0 to 0, and from -1 to -1/3. Did you multiply by 3? What did you do? You divide by 3. So when this number is up here, this A value, you divide by this number. And then all you have to do on the quiz tomorrow is make sure you just plot those points. God bless you. Let's take a look at number 4. Where's the 4 this time? Is it inside the argument or outside? It's outside of the argument. It's outside this time for number 4. All right, help me out. Did my X values change or my Y values? My Y values. Okay, so when it's outside of the argument, it's the Y values that changed. How did they change? How do you get from 1/2 to 2, 1 to 4, 2 to 8? You multiply by this number. So when it's outside of the argument, so over here, when it was inside the argument, we divided by the number. Now that it's outside of the argument, you're going to multiply by that number. Go ahead and take a second to check, make sure your domain and range and asymptotes are right. Kaya, when you get a second, can you show Sean so he can get started so that you can finish it in 4th, okay? Let me know it's ready. All right, let's take a look at number 5. Let's see if we got number 5 right. Did I change inside the argument or outside of the argument? Number 5. If I change inside of the argument, what changes? My X value or my Y? Yes, very good. So again, my X value changes. How does my X value change? How do you get from -1 to -4? How do you get from 0 to -3? How do you get from 1 to -2? You subtract 3. Remember, inside the argument, it's the opposite of what you think. There's a +3, you're actually going to subtract 3. Didn't we do the same thing on the one before? It's the opposite of what you think. You guys saw that 3? Remember, and you guys were like, oh, multiply. Well, what did we say about the argument again? It's the opposite of what you think. So you're not going to multiply by 3. What do you do? Divide by 3. Okay? So here it says x plus 3. We're going to subtract 3. But from both of them or just the x? Just the x value. All right, number 5, take a second and make sure that you have the right asymptotes and domain and range. Wow, this thing is slow. I hate this laptop. All right, so for number 6, I don't want to show you the answer yet. Just tell me. Number 6, is it outside the argument or inside the argument? Outside of the argument. If it's outside the argument, which letter changes? The y value. Very good. Outside of the argument, the y changes. How much does it change by? Adding 2. So all of these, you add 2, add 2, add 2. So in your summary, you should have a very strong statement of when the x changes and when the y changes. Let me give you 2 minutes right now to write this down. When does your x value change? And how does it change? The x does not change what you think it is, right? It's always the opposite of what you think. And the y value changes when? And then I'm going to ask a couple people to read them out loud, and then you can come get some red vines, because I want to hear what you guys are saying. When do you change the x, and when do you change the y? Just write it right now. Like write it again if you haven't already done so. All right, who can read these for me? I want 3 volunteers who have some good summaries for me. It's not that I'm trying to attack you. I'm just trying to see where there might be some misconceptions so I can fix it now, before the quiz on Thursday. Riad, can you read it for me, please?
You change the y when it's on the outside
Of the argument.
and then you change the x when it's inside when it's also inside. If it's a negative, you know you need to put y minus is
Careful, if you subtract, not if it's negative.
Okay, yeah. If you
What happens if it's negative? We just did it in the warm-up. We just did it in the warm-up. It reflects. When does it reflect? When does it reflect across the x and which one across the y? It's the opposite of what we just freaking said. That's why it's so confusing. Remember we said if it's negative outside the argument, then it's reflected across the x. Remember? Outside, the reflection's across the x. If the negative's inside the argument, then it's reflected across the y. Riad, come get a couple. Who can read it for me? I need another one. Even if it's the same thing she just said, I don't care. I just want to hear it. Go ahead, Jerson.
So I said when the number is in the argument, these are the opposite. The x changes, and then when the number is not in the argument, the y changes.
Okay. The reason why I'm a little worried about the word the number is because what if it said like on tonight's homework, it's going to say 3 minus x instead of the x coming first. How do you change 3 minus x to put the x first? What would that say? Negative x plus 3. Do you guys understand that 3 minus x is the same thing as negative x plus 3? Okay. So that's why I'm a little worried when you say just the number. So you want to say the operation of the number, because you want to know that it's going to be the opposite when it's inside the argument. Thank you for sharing, Jerson. Come get your 2. Can I have another one, please? One more summary, please. I have like 4 hands up right now. What happened? One more. Go ahead, babe. Thank you, Dylan.
Your x value only changes when the argument of the function is being modified. Its change would only be applied as the opposite of what's given in the argument.
Nicely done. And the y?
The y value only changes. Y value changes when the argument is on the outside and it's applied as c.
Outside of the argument. Very good. Nicely done.